Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in. Jacob of Paradox Multimedia here, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be starting a brand new series called the Ben 10 Rescore series. Now, what is Ben 10 Rescore? It's essentially going to be a series where I'm going to be taking a scene from an episode of Ben 10, any scene from any episode throughout the original series to the reboot from 2016, and I'm going to be taking that scene, breaking down the music, kind of analyzing like how it works for the scene, like what it's trying to do, and like basically give my thoughts on what works, and if I think anything doesn't work, then I'm going to take that and I'm going to make my own score for that scene, and I'm going to show you what I did, my thoughts behind it, all that stuff. If you've seen my behind the scenes videos for the previous two Ben 10 projects I've done, then you'll kind of know what I'm getting at. And then finally I'm going to show what the scene is like with my new music underneath it. And of course, you can let me know in the comments below whether you think it works, if it doesn't, and, you know, criticism. On top of that, you can also suggest episodes, and I will try to get around to them as best I can, because this series is going to take a bit more work than anything else I've done so far. But I really hope you enjoy, and if you do, remember to leave a like on this video, and all that other stuff. Subscribe to the channel, keep up to date. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get into the first scene that we'll be tackling for this series. Alright, and we'll start this now.
Oh, man, this is gonna be the worst vacation ever.
Okay.
I might as well have gone to summer school.
So, alright, so we got this little bit here with this kind of like synth, which, you know, it kind of works as a sound effect and also like as music a little bit, because as the scene plays out, it continues, and it just kind of like adds to the feeling you're supposed to get with the scene, where it feels very otherworldly, very alien. This is like obvious stuff, but like the first episode, so they're going to be doing some obvious things. Also, this is like 2005.
A shooting star!
Okay, there, like I said, it continues as like a sound effect, but you hear that like kind of change as it changes direction. Again, sound effect, also music. It's the whole point is to add to the scene by like being subtle while also being obvious. Okay, so you could kind of hear there that there was some you could hear like the way the synth in a way kind of like increased in volume a little bit to like add to the feeling of it like impacting and like coming down at him. You could also hear as he started running some like kind of like toms a little bit, like the sort of like doom kind of drums. That's a very common thing to add, as I'm sure you may have noticed in other media, for like just action in drums. It makes it feel very dynamic. And as you'll hear here, you could kind of hear that cymbal coming in and like resonating, which kind of serves to cut through everything, and it matches a little bit with like the dust clearing, the way it's synced, so it kind of like makes it feel like things are like, okay, that was a lot, but now it's settling down a little bit. Okay, now you've got like that hum from the pod, as well as this like very low kind of like almost, you know how people talk about like a blink and you miss it sort of situation? It's like that, but with your ears. It's hard to describe, but like that also, that adds an ominous feel to it, as well as again adding to that sort of like otherworldly alien feel of this scene.
Looks like a satellite or something.
Okay, that one was just like a regular sound effect that also kind of serves to like cause like a slight moment of tension because all of a sudden it's silent again. Which that's a very good way to add tension, is to just like cut everything and have it be perfectly silent. It is a very effective technique for adding tension to a scene that, again, you've probably seen it and noticed it. Sometimes it's more obvious, some you may have just like subconsciously noticed it. It depends on how effective it is, because music, especially for a score or soundtrack, whatever, is like, it's to add to the scene in a way that you kind of notice, but it's more subconscious. Sometimes it's, again, it depends on the thing. And that sort of musical sting there.
What's a watch doing in outer space?
Again, otherworldly. It's interesting how they've got that kind of like almost theremin kind of sound. That might be it doesn't quite sound like an actual theremin to me. It sounds like a synthesized sound. But that's just that like very quintessential like alien sound. Like, yep, this is definitely like from space. Which, isolating the scene for a second, like completely separate from having already seen like the fight with Vilgax up in space and anything else, like this scene isolated here with that, like, solidifies the idea that, yeah, like, say you just turned on the TV and it was like at the beginning of the scene, like, this is very obviously like, yeah, this is aliens here. Then you've got like this kind of tremolo, like string trill that's supposed to like really make it feel like it's another way to add tension. Because as the strings rise, so does the tension. Okay, and then you've got like the drums again. That makes it feel very dynamic because he's running. It's in a way kind of adding the idea of like heavy footfalls, which here is a little weird, but yeah. So that was only like a minute long, a little over that. So it's a very like short scene when you look into it, but when you like look at the sound design, it's very, like I said, it's a little like, I wouldn't say basic necessarily, but it's like, it kind of is obvious, but like, again, like music can be subtle and sometimes it can be obvious, as long as it's doing its job well of emphasizing and enhancing a scene. Because if this was like completely quiet, like without the music, like you wouldn't feel the tension, you wouldn't feel as dynamic, you know? And yeah, so not a whole lot to talk about with this scene, but now I'm going to switch over to the DAW and show you my sort of reimagining of this, so let's head over there. All right, here we are in the DAW. I've got the track open. I did plan to record the process and kind of explain it, but I've been really busy and kind of forgot every time I was working on this, so we're not doing that this episode, but we are going to be taking a look. I'm going to be giving you guys a look at how this track is done out. As you can see, this one I did rely a little more on samples and loops on. I am hoping to try and rely on them less as I go through the series, but these just kind of fit for the sound I was going for, because I didn't want to make it, I wanted to add more to the scene, but I didn't want to make it too much more complex, because again, this is like supposed to be an early episode, and the simpler like music the scene did work for it, but I just want to take that and like expand on it and make more of it, because the ambience that the original scene had worked. There just wasn't a whole lot of it. So here we go. As you can see up here, I had the audio that will be in the original, the audio from the original scene with the music removed as best I could through Audacity, and I just kind of threw it in here for reference while making the music. That way I had something to go off of for timing, and I didn't like have to, like, every time I did something, like save it and then like bring it over into my editor, see how it sounds and whatever. Like, it helped a lot with timing and such, so that's cool. But here, just gonna solo this real quick. This is for like the little bit in the beginning where it's just like Ben walking. And I originally started with just the synth because, like I said, I wanted it to be like a kind of simple ambience. But I then decided to add this little bit here, this cicada audio here. It says Athmo, but it's supposed to be like atmospheric. Just this little bit here to kind of add to that like nighttime, like forest ambience. You can also hear, it's not just cicadas in there, there is like something else. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it's again just like, oh hey, out in the woods at night, that sort of sound, which really adds to the sound effects that are still in the original audio. Sound effects are really interesting because they're always like about as loud, if not louder, than like the dialogue, because they're meant to cut through and catch your attention and like let you know what's going on. The music is usually lower to again like add to the scene while not distracting from it, and that also helps with the sound effects because that helps the sound effects stand out. Sorry, I bit my tongue last night, so it's kind of weird speaking right now. Unsolo these, so you can see it kind of fades into this next part, which is when Ben looks up because of the like pod flying through the air. So it just kind of switches to this sort of like string synth kind of bit. And then I've got this little bit of a swell here rising up, this bass to kind of, it's a little, it's rhythmic, but it's also slightly erratic sounding. So that kind of, you get that rising sense of urgency with it, because it's at that moment where it just suddenly changes course and starts flying at Ben. And then, like I mentioned before, about how there's always like these really kind of heavy, like toms kind of drums. So like that kind of comes in along here, along with like a couple other kind of sting sound effects for like him running away and the impact and everything. And then that little bass like shot there along the cymbals, it lines up with the part where Ben goes flying through the air and like the smoke's clearing and such. It again like continues that feeling of like urgency and danger, while again, like I mentioned, how the cymbals in the original kind of like matched the movement of like the smoke dissipating, and I really wanted to keep that same sort of feel with it, so that's why it comes in there like it does. It's a little bit awkwardly timed just hearing it by itself and like separating it out like this, like listening to it all together while watching the scene. Like trust me, it sounds better. But yeah, you get that little bit there as like Ben's getting up, and then you have like a short bit of silence where he's like walking towards it, and you can just hear the hum of the pod, which, just like in the original, I wanted to keep that where it's just like that moment of silence, which is a useful technique for adding tension, where things go from like loud to like deathly silent, like deafeningly silent, I guess is a better way of putting it. Where it's just like everything is still, at least as far as the music is concerned, and like that's all you hear, so you're just like waiting. Then it comes in with this other ambience here, which you can see if you look closely is just labeled ominous. I added that kind of hit there for like when the rocks crumble beneath him, just to add like a little extra like oomph to the tension there. I guess that's a weird way of putting it. Anyways, and it just kind of goes past there. He gets up, he approaches it, it opens. You've got an extra layer to the ambience there, with like this kind of sub down here. And this kind of matches the ambience it had before that I mentioned I really liked, where it makes it feel very alien and foreign and just otherworldly. So it like helps add to like the scene while making it feel more serious and ominous. Which, while the scene did all right in the original score, it to me didn't feel like it hit quite as. It didn't quite hit the way it could have, in my opinion. Oh, and then there's more down here. Just reaching out for the Omnitrix, and now this part was originally different. So let me show you. Let me just mute this here. Because all of this is part of something completely separate. What I originally had here, where is it? Unmute that. Where I originally was going with this was, mute. Okay. So this isn't exactly lining up the way I had it before because I've changed this, but originally I had this a little bit shorter, especially this here, but this will sound a little bit familiar. And the Omnitrix latches onto him. And that, I really wanted to make it feel like the moment, because I'm kind of going with a little bit of a horror angle here to try and like really hit that like whoa kind of feel for this scene. I decided to remove that because I showed the track to Noximation. Go check him out. I had reached out to him when I was still like trying to figure out what to do for this episode and asked if he would helping make sure the tracks I'm going to be doing for rescoring the scenes for this series sound like Ben 10 but also sound good, because I want to add my own flair to it, but I also don't want to deviate too far from the sound of Ben 10, because then it's not going to sound as authentic when I put it in, I guess. That's maybe just me, the way I feel about it, but I reached out to him and he really liked it up until this part, and he didn't hate it, but he said I should make it louder and grander, which is this part down here. So I took out this little horror bit here and just muted that, and just unmute everything else. So this is the final version. And that is the final track. This is just that little bit there. If you still don't recognize what that little 3-note bit there is, it's just like part of the Ben 10 leitmotif, or like is the Ben 10 leitmotif. There's kind of more to it, but that's just like the bit I used. I've used it in both actually previous Ben 10 projects I've done. For the Ink Tank with the Ben's 15th anniversary like event trailer I did, and for the trailer I did for Ben 10 One Last Time, or Ben One Last Time for Xanderflix, which, you know, Noximation is also a part of. And he actually did the music for the first 2 episodes so far. I'm excited to see what he does for episode 3. But while on the topic of projects and Nox, definitely go check out his webcomic, Changers Honor at Destiny. He also recently did a thing called Changers Week over on his channel, where he did 7 days of content for the series, showing awesome music, concepts, and other stuff like that. Definitely go check that out, and of course, just support him in general. He's a really cool guy, really talented young artist, and he definitely deserves your support. And if you've enjoyed this Ben 10 Rescore series so far, be sure to leave a like on the video and check out my other content. Also subscribe and click the notification bell so you can keep up to date with the series as other episodes come out. I'm going to try to make this somewhat of a regular thing, but it took a while just to get this started, so don't be expecting anything too soon. I'm going to show the scene with the music added in just a moment, but once again, I just want to thank you so much for watching. Anyways, I hope you guys have a great day night when you see this, and I'll see you next time.
Man, this is gonna be the worst vacation ever. I might as well have gone to summer school. Whoa! A shooting star! Looks like a satellite or something. What's a watch doing in outer space?